Welcome to our weekly meditation, the beginning of August already. Didn't choose this image with anything particular in mind, but it does remind me that there are leaves on the ground already. But we continue with a little bit of exploration of Benedict, and one of the pillars of Benedictine life was humility. A story is told of one of the desert mothers who quizzed the demons were driven away by a holy hermit, and she asked them, "What drives you away from this holy hermit? Is it his fasting?" "We do not eat or drink," said the demons. "So is it his vigils?" "We do not sleep," they replied. "Is it his separation from the world?" "Of course not. We live in deserts ourselves," said the demons. "So what power drives you away then?" And the demons replied, "Nothing can overcome us except humility." Of course, the root of the word humility is the Latin word humus, meaning soil or earth. So I think there's something very fundamental in the word humility about connection and being down to earth. So let's take that idea into our first round of relaxation as we adjust our position, sitting upright if you can, feeling your feet down to earth, down on the ground. And we bring our attention, as always, to the breathing. Consciously taking slightly longer and deeper breaths. Conscious that you're breathing in and conscious that you're breathing out. Maybe aware of the slight sound that accompanies that breathing. Now, with the in-breath, a sense of breathing in for relaxation and breathing out of any tension. Breathing in, relaxation. Breathing out, tension. And as you focus there, maybe notice any areas of the body that are achy or maybe a little tense. Imagine breathing in relaxation, maybe to the shoulders, maybe to the knees if you've been kneeling in the garden like I have. Maybe the neck, maybe behind the eyes, maybe the forehead. Focus your attention there and imagine you're breathing in. The breath is relaxing that part of the body. And you're breathing out any tension. Sense with that breath which fills the lungs that the whole body is indeed connected. And indeed connected to the ground, down to earth. Maybe as you continue to breathe in relaxation, breathing out tension, perhaps even experience a sense of restoration. Or even healing. So continue with that breath, with that connection. One or two more thoughts on humility, which may require us to reassess perhaps some preconceptions of this word. It's not about being passive and submissive and ever so humble. And it's not associated necessarily with being quiet or introspective. And it's certainly not to be confused with humiliation, a sense of misery or shame, whether self-imposed or imposed from outside. Abbot Jameson says that it's rather a quality of life or a state of mind. Humus, down to earth, implying honesty, truthfulness. And from humus, humility and humanity. And of course, one of Christianity's founding myths in the book of Genesis is that the first man, Adam, is the one made out of the ground. Admah, the Hebrew word for the ground. Perhaps we think of that Genesis creation account and the temptation of the mythical figures Adam and Eve, rather than being about good and evil, it's about giving up being of the ground, of the humus, wanting rather to become godlike, like the gods. Pride rather than humility, of the gods rather than of humanity. And I'm sure the writer of Genesis, just like Benedict, was aware this is a recurring element in the history of the human race, where human interactions go wrong, either at an individual level, within government, between nations. Can we not trace a lack of humanity and humility and an excess of pride and arrogance? So Benedict places humility at the heart of his insights into monastic life. And he envisages, he talks of a ladder with 12 steps. The first is fear of God, as in awe. When one consciously obeys all of God's commandments, holding within himself a fear of God in his heart. And Abbot Jameson helpfully adds that a sense of humour is also important, the ability to laugh at ourselves. And the second step is when one thinks not about pleasing oneself, but follows the injunction of the Lord. Very countercultural against the idea of simply doing your own thing. Again, this is not passive. This is a conscious choice, a conscious decision. There's a very simple example. Rather than when one feels hungry, simply eating, being able to wait, touching on fasting almost. But one practices such discipline without becoming excessive and puritanical. And if we think of other desires as well, gluttony or greed, lust, vanity, anger, all are very human desires, but they can be contained so that we react more slowly to them. A good example, I think, of self-awareness. If I can notice that I am hungry, impatient, angry, but I choose to respond this way rather than that way, we can make deliberate choices. So as we come back to our breathing, rather than the attention being on the body, let's move our attention to the mind. The mind through which so many random thoughts flow and ebb. At any one time, you might be thinking about a conversation, and then, what did I see on TV yesterday? Oh, I've got to do this tomorrow. Maybe a meeting or something that you're not looking forward to. Get distracted by our phones. So bring the attention to the breath, but just notice if there are any thoughts that you can identify. Or check in with yourself, just how am I feeling? You may be feeling relaxed. That's good. Notice it. You may be feeling a little anxious. Again, notice that. Each time come back to the breath. And maybe even add a count to help with that. A little set of perhaps helpful tips to deal with unhelpful thoughts. 4 C's. The first is to notice or to catch the unhelpful thought. Then to check that thought. Is it justified? Is there any evidence to support what you might be thinking negatively? Thirdly, challenge the thought. Is there a positive counter to the negative one? And finally, change the thought. You might be beating yourself up and think, I'm no good at this, or I can't do that, or that didn't go well. But it might be that instead you say, well, people seem to appreciate how I handle this situation, or although I struggle, I've always managed to do this. Catch, check, challenge, change. And so briefly back to Benedict and his steps. Briefly, step 3. In this one, the monk submits to his superior in all obedience. A very practical way, I think, of practicing that step 2, of controlling the desires. And then step 4, when one patiently and quietly endures all things that are inflicted on him. This is not just grin and bear it, that's endurance of suffering, but rather embracing patience, living out in a positive frame of mind any of the difficulties that come from trying to obey and love others. Being grounded, being connected, being down to earth. You just have some of those thoughts in mind as we move towards our time of silence with Salt of the Sound, when I sit at your feet. And maybe changing those thoughts. You might want to use an affirmation. I'm safe. I am loved. I can do this. It's okay to make mistakes. I trust myself. When I sit at your feet, and I turn my face, when I rest here in the shadow of your wings, Hold me close to you so I hear your voice. So we move to our silence, which you might just practice your breathing, practice observing yourself, your thoughts, maybe challenging any negative thoughts, or just a reassurance of being connected and being down to earth. So we come out of silence. Maybe opening your eyes gently if they've been closed. Reconnecting with your breathing. Flexing fingers and reminding yourself of your connection to the ground. When I rest here in the shadow of your wings, hold me close to you so I hear your voice. The closing prayer from Catherine of Siena. O eternal and glorious Trinity, deeper than the deepest sea, and the abyss of love for whom we thirst and long, let us forever desire your light, forever seek your face, and forever wrap ourselves in the robe of your glory, world without end. Amen.